Welcome to GirlDadNation. This is part 2 of my interview with Ralph Martinez, where we get into more of the great stories of raising daughters. Plus, Ralph talks about his journey of founding a homeless shelter in Española, New Mexico. Let's get to it. And I also wanted to ask, do you find there's like a societal pressure to focus on sons, or like, I guess possibly the word might be like a machismo kind of thing, like of like a manliness, just by like being sensitive is like somehow like not manly.
Right.
But I think like tapping into, like you mentioned, kind of like the feminine sort of mentality, the feminine beauty, and having daughters and appreciating that from their perspective. My daughter actually just came downstairs.
Oh, nice.
She woke up. Yeah, do you feel that, like, do you think that that's real in our culture, like sort of an emphasis on like the masculine?
Yeah, and you know what? I do, and I don't agree with it. I think that sometimes it's like, oh, you're a boy, you gotta be tough, and
Yeah.
things like that, and that's not necessarily what I believe. I mean, yeah, you have to be tough, but at the same time, you have to be sensitive. At the same time, in order to have that humanitarian balance, right? And it's okay to cry. I've always told my son, man, it's okay to cry. You need to cry it out. It's a natural filter that we have for our emotions, our heart and our mind, and we need that. We need that, right? And so, but yeah, being sensitive, that's one of the words that I was looking for a little while ago. And when it comes to raising little girls, is I've really learned how to tap into my sensitive side raising a little girl, right? Because that's kind of father's love to their daughter, right? And the same thing with your son, of course. But again, it's about knowing the difference between the two worlds, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Are there any particular funny stories you have raising any of your kids, or Ava now that's 6?
oh yeah, I mean, Ava's just a character, and yeah, there's so many. I mean, kids do the wildest things, and they come up with the wildest things, and you're just like,
Yeah.
what? Like, what? How did you? Like, with Ava, about 2 months ago, we were at a store, and I had a meeting, and so I remember I looked at my watch, and I'm like, oh man, we gotta go, right? And I'm like, okay, Ava, come on, we gotta go. And so I had her by the hand, and we're walking out, and all of a sudden she came to a dead stop at the door as we're walking out. She came to a dead stop, and so I'm like, I turn around and look at her, and there's a telescope that was on display by the front door, and she says, she's looking at it, really puzzled, right? She's 6 years old, and she's looking at it, kind of puzzled, and she said, Dada, is that a camera? And I said, no, honey, that's a telescope. I said, come on, let's go. And so we walk outside, and we get to the car, and I'm putting her in the back seat in the booster, and I'm putting on her seatbelt, and she tells me, Dada, did you know that Galileo is the inventor of the telescope? And I looked at her, and I'm thinking, is she right? Is she right about that? Right? And I looked at her, and I said, I didn't say nothing. I buckled her seatbelt. I got in the front seat. And so I got on Google, right? I'm like, who is the inventor of the telescope? And so I pulled it up as Galileo. And I'm like, what the heck? So I looked in the rearview mirror, and she's just sitting in the back seat, and she's looking at me, and I'm like, honey, who's the inventor of the telescope? And she said, Galileo, Dad. And I started laughing, and I said, how would you know that? Right? And she said, I saw it on a video. I'm like, what the heck? what kind of videos are you watching? But it cracked me up because I'm like, these kids are so smart. They're like sponges.
Yeah.
They soak in, right? When it comes to things. And that's why it's important for parents to be careful on what they do and what they say and how they act, because our kids are watching, right? Our kids are watching and they're mimicking and they're learning and they're soaking things up. And so, but yeah, just kids come out with the craziest things, right? And it's just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's amazing what they learn, and they'll repeat stuff. So especially as they get older, like I have to be careful what I say and everything.
right.
But yeah, they just have such a capacity to learn and such a wonder about everything too. So yeah, we go to the zoo or different things, and it's always like, Daddy, what's that? Daddy, what's that? And it's like it's everything that they just want to absorb. And it's amazing. It gives you a new appreciation for those things that we just take for granted. And they're like, yeah, that is really amazing. That and like I remember when my daughter first saw the giraffes at the zoo and just her eyes looking up, and it's just like, wow, she had never seen something that big. And but just the wonder and all that kind of stuff, it's amazing.
Oh, their imaginations are huge, man. And sometimes I
Yeah.
feed off of Ava last summer and the summer before. She still is really into dragons, but she was like deeply into dragons last summer and the summer before. And so there was a couple times that we went dragon hunting, right?
Oh, awesome.
And
Yeah.
we went on a hike and we're like looking for like dragon prints, and she swears that she saw a dragon. There's one right there, and she's running, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I thought I saw one. And so I'm playing along with her, and I've done a couple posts on Facebook whenever we've done that,
Mhm.
and feeding her imagination and how important it is to feed their
Yeah.
imagination, right? Or that's what I believe, it's important to feed their imagination. And so
Yeah.
yeah, the things that they come up with and the things that they teach us along the way, or remind us about even, right?
Mhm.
Remind us how to use our imagination and the importance of that, and the belief that it kind of gives us, and the strength and the courage, and things like that. They remind us, or my little one, she reminds me of things that I sometimes tend to forget, the
Yeah.
importance of the simplicity part of life, right?
Yeah, that's so cool. I like the dragons too. Um, yeah, my daughter, she is really into dinosaurs. So we were gonna get her this blanket, and they have a bunch of different designs, and we're like, oh, do you want the unicorn ones or whatever? And she was like, she really wanted the dinosaur blanket. And I was like, awesome, all right, we're gonna get you the dinosaur blanket.
Do it. Yeah.
And then she and I built this, like we got her a big dinosaur puzzle that takes up, it's like 3 feet by 3 feet. And she and I built that together, and she was like, "Rawr!" She loves doing the dinosaur noises and everything.
And
Yeah,
that's important also, letting them be themselves, because
yeah,
there's probably situations where individuals are like, oh, no, you're a little girl, let's get you the unicorn one, right? And it's like,
yeah. All
but
the
a lot
pink
of them,
stuff. Yeah,
right, all the pink stuff. And the same thing with like Ava loves reptiles. I'm like, where did you get that from? So she has a couple pet baby bearded dragons. She
oh,
has,
cool.
yeah, and she loves them. And so she got one. Her mom got her a baby bearded dragon. So she came home one day all excited about her new pet, and she asked me if we could get one for over here. So I said, if that's what you want. So we went to the
Yeah.
pet store, and she picked out a baby bearded dragon. She named him Bob. And so,
Bob.
yeah, Bob. And so we even and then we got a second baby bearded dragon. Bob was a male. We got a female. We named her Becky. And so and we would take her everywhere. She'd put Bob on one shoulder and Becky on the other shoulder, or she'd put it like this. And
Yeah,
and they're really cool, right? And people would freak out. What is that? Oh, it's her baby
yeah,
dragons. And everyone's, oh my God, can I see them? And she's like, this is Bob and this is Becky. And it's like, oh my God, that's so cute. So we even started a Facebook page, her and I, Eva and
Oh,
I,
that's cool.
The Adventures of Bob and The Adventures of Bob. Yeah, The Adventures of Bob and Becky. I think they passed away, and so
Oh,
for about a period of 7 months, we just do different posts, and people were enjoying it, man. I freaked out on how many people were enjoying watching Bob and Becky, and we had them
yeah.
doing like some really cool stuff, you know. And but even when Bob passed away, it was pretty sad. And so he passed away one night. So the
Mhm.
following morning, I had to let her know that Bob passed away. And I got him and I put him inside of a shoebox, and I put the shoebox away. And so I let her know that Bob had passed away, and asked her if we could
Yeah.
talk about it. And, and then I asked her if she wanted to do a burial for Bob. And she
Mhm.
said, yeah. And so we dug a hole in the backyard, and then I brought out the box and I did this little eulogy for her, and
Yeah.
we thanked God for giving us the time with Bob, and we thanked Bob for all the joy that he brought to our lives. And then we were going to bury him, and she said, and I didn't want her to see, Bob when he was passed away, and so he was in that box. And then she stayed looking at me. She said, "Dad, Bob's not really in that box, is he?" And I said, "Yeah, he's in the box." And she said, "I don't know if he is." So at that point, I said, "I have to show her, right? For closure for her,
Yeah.
I have to show her." And so I said, "Honey, would you like to see Bob?" I said, "I think that might be important for you so that you know." And so she said, "Yeah." So I opened up the box and she saw Bob, and she started crying, and I cried. And it was
Yeah.
really healthy. It was a really healthy thing, because she started talking a little bit more about how much happiness Bob had brought her. And so we talked about
Yeah.
that a little bit, and then we buried Bob, and it was a good thing. It was healing. She was good after that. But yeah, so anyways, going back to the
Yeah.
whole, yeah, kids are funny, man. They like the craziest things sometimes. Like she likes to watch these videos, and I'm like, she watches Jojo Siwa. That's like her favorite, and so she watches Jojo Siwa a lot. But she watches this thing called it's like this hackers video. Oh my God, why am I blanking it out now? But she's always watching it. Hold on, I'm gonna get on YouTube because we always watch it. Now I'm like, why am I forgetting? Oh, I have it on airplane mode.
Well, my wife like really hates she's really really afraid of snakes. So
Yeah.
like we would probably never get a reptile in the house. um but I
Ava
didn't
wanted
want
a
that.
snake. Ava wanted a snake, and I'm the same way. I'm there with your wife. I'm like, no, the snake. No.
Yeah, but I didn't want my daughters to have the same fear. And I'm kind of indifferent. I don't really like snakes all that much. I probably would never want one.
Yeah,
But when we go to the zoo, I try to take my daughter to the reptile exhibit, and
yeah.
she loves the snake. She loves watching. And for me, I'm like, at least they're in their enclosure, they're safe. So so I walk with her and she just loves it. She makes the snake sound. She's like, snakes and all the and then we watch the snakes like slither and stuff in their little enclosure, and she's like green snake and all the different things. And but it's cool that she doesn't have that fear
It's
of that.
amazing.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
it helps
I'm like,
me
we need
to
to get our
appreciate it.
daughters
Yeah.
together because it sounds like they have a lot in common, because Ava's the same way with snakes. So even with spiders, and I have to get on her about that, because she'll come, look at this spider I found, and she's not afraid. And I'm like, terrible, man, get that away from me, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, but I have to tell her, like, you need to be careful, Ava. You can't just be picking up any spider.
Yeah.
Why, Dad? They don't scare me. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to understand that some of them are poisonous and they can really, really hurt you. If you see one, come get
Yeah.
me, and then I'll let you know, and we'll work it out. You'll figure it out. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, they don't have that fear. They're fearless. It's both like a great thing to see and a scary thing to see at the same time.
Yeah. That's cool. Did you find that video?
Oh, I haven't looked.
Or not yet?
I haven't looked. But did you want me to find it right away?
Oh, if you had it available, yeah, I was just curious.
Let's see.
My daughter loves to watch the cars, like the truck videos in the morning. So sometimes like while she's eating breakfast, we watch some car videos and that kind of stuff. And then I also wanted to ask, yeah, you started a homeless shelter too. So I wanted to ask you about that. How long has that been? And yeah, what was that journey like?
Yeah, so I co-founded the first ever homeless shelter here in Española in Rio Riva County. And it's been in operation for a little more than a year. And the initiative started in 2019, November of 2019. And in November of 2019, I had went to Walmart here in Española to go get some stuff for lunch for the weekend. I got there, it was about 10 o'clock at night. And it was the first week of November that year. And I got out of my car and it was cold. It was really, really cold.
Yeah.
And so I remember getting out and saying, oh man, it's cold. So I got my jacket, I put my jacket on, zipped it up, and my beanie, and I started walking towards the front door of Walmart. And as I'm walking towards the front door of Walmart, there's a little curb that individuals that are going through situations, you know, homeless, whatever, they kind of hang out at that little curb. And so as I'm walking towards the front door, I saw these three guys, and they were just there, right? And I knew who these guys were, and you know, some of the homeless that are going through struggle right now in my community, some of them I spent time with when I was homeless. And so, you know, we have a bond, a connection, a friendship, right? And so anyways, as I was walking in, it took me back in my mind to some of the things that I went through during the winter seasons when I was homeless. I was homeless in the winter of 2007. In the winter of 2007, they deemed northern New Mexico a state of emergency because it got so bad. It was bad. It was so cold that the P&M lines were busting, and they had to shut down the Chama area because they just got so dumped on. One of the stores caved in. I mean, it was bad. That winter of 2007 was terrible, and I feel like I barely made it out of that winter alive. But anyways, as I'm walking into Walmart and knowing how the temperature change that was happening, the winter season that was coming up, and seeing these guys, and it just took me back to some of the things that I went through during my homelessness when it was winter. And so anyways, when I got to the front door, I stopped and I started talking to them. You know, like I said, I knew who they were. And so we just started talking. And one of the guys actually I spent time with, we shared space when I was homeless. And so we started talking about, hey, do you remember back then? And you remember this and you remember that? And I asked them, so what are you guys doing to get ready for the winter season? And so, you know, one of them said, oh, I've been ready. And he lifted up his shirt, and he had 2 pairs of sweats and a pair of jeans on, and he had 3 shirts and a hoodie. And he said, oh, you know, I've been prepared. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? And so we talked about what it means to get prepared when you're homeless for the winter. And I told them about some of the things that I used to do to stay warm. We talked about that winter of 2007. And so anyways, we had this really big conversation. And then we talked for about almost an hour. And then I went into the store, got what I needed, and I left. So when I got home that night, I just couldn't stop thinking about that, right? My interaction with these individuals and where it took me to, and what I went through during that time. And so by 2019, I had already built a lot of relationships, a lot of connections here within my community because of the different community activism that I had got involved in. And so I knew I had a list of people in my phone when it came to city leaders and county leaders and state leaders and organizational leaders and faith-based leaders, right? And so I said, I'm gonna put together a text message, and I'm gonna include everybody that I possibly can, that I feel can do something, right? That'll hear me, listen to me, do something. And it was late when I was thinking this. It was about midnight, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll do that first thing in the morning, right? It's kind of late, and I just couldn't sleep thinking about it. So about 1:30 in the morning, I finally said, screw it. I'm sending the message up. Like, I don't even care. Like, it was in my head. I needed to get it out of my head. And so I put it in this big old text message. I explained about what happened when I got to Walmart, the individuals that I saw, the conversations that we got into, where it took me back, what I went through, when I was going through that situation, the resources that existed and didn't exist, and things like that. And in the very end, I said, if there's anything that can be done, and if there's anything that I can help to do to get something started, please let me know. But this is a serious issue in our community. And at 1:30 in the morning, I said, I'll send it out. And I had about 20 individuals on this text message. Like I said, city leaders, county leaders, state leaders, organizational leaders, faith-based leaders. And I said, they'll see it when they wake up. And I hit send. And about 5 minutes later, I got a response from Roger Montoya, who is now a state representative, but he is the co-founder of Moving Arts in Española. And he responded 5 minutes later and said, hey, Ralph, can we talk first thing in the morning? So I responded back and I said, yes. And then the following morning, it was about 5:30 in the morning, I got a response from Christopher Madrid. At the time, he was the economic development director for Rio Arriba County. And he texted back and he said, hey, Ralph, can we talk? And I said, yes. So me, Roger, and Chris actually got together for breakfast, and we talked about this situation. And so that's how it all got started. We just started visiting. We said, okay, what do we do? We need to figure out what it means to operate a shelter. None of us have ever done that before. I'd been in homeless shelters. When I was in Florida, there was a few shelters that I had to, and so I knew what it was like to be a guest at a shelter. I knew nothing about the operational side, right? And so anyways, we started visiting different homeless shelters within our area, the Taos men's shelter. And, we sat with their director, we let them know who we were and what was going on in our community. And they were open to guide us on what it would take to even get started and get your, the foundation of the idea started in, St. Elizabeth's in Santa Fe. So we started visiting multiple shelters, kind of just getting information, learning. And then we started hosting community meetings, and one thing led to another. We got a big momentum of community members that were passionate about this situation that our community faces. And so one thing led to another, and we were eventually able to open up the first ever homeless shelter. And so that was a good thing. And a homeless shelter in our community had been tried on 4 different occasions over the past 15 to 20 years, and shut down at the city level, at the planning and zoning level. There was a lot of NIMBYism, not in my backyard type of individuals and mindsets, and so when and they were tried by very passionate people. There was a couple of different priests that had attempted. There was the Health and Human Services Director for Rio Arriba County that attempted it. And so, these were people that had the means to be able to get one started, but that NIMBY shut it down. And so when we finally got to the point of getting all our ducks in a row and doing all our homework and putting everything in place to go up against planning and zoning, it was a huge meeting. It was a huge meeting. They hosted it in the cafeteria at the college here in Española. There was well over 200 people that showed up, and some were for, some were against. The majority was for, and it was a 3.5-hour meeting of just back and forth, back and forth.
Wow.
But in the very end, planning and zoning voted for it unanimously, and so that was huge.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, so we opened up Española Pathway Shelter. It's been in operation for a little over a year. Last December, we were blessed to be able to buy a hotel that's right next to where we operate. So we purchased a hotel. We're using that
Cool.
as transitional housing. And we've had a really good turnaround at the transitional housing. We've had an 85% success rate so far, and we're like
Wow.
just amazed to be able to see the individuals that are going through that program and getting to a more sustainable life. And we actually just got granted $1.86 million to purchase the building and the property where the shelter's at. And so the shelter sits on a 2-level. It was a shopping plaza, is what it was. And so there's a top level and a lower level. The shelter is on the lower level. The whole lower level is the shelter. Up top, we were blessed to be able to get Goodwill to be a tenant. We have this other organization called Bridge to Health New Mexico, a nonprofit 501c3 nonprofit organization that is in another space. And then we have an empty space right now where we're looking at bringing in the food depot. And so it's like a central hub for many different resources. And so, we're just excited to be able to be a pathway for individuals who are going through situations in life, who are looking to find their way out, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, congrats on Pathways. That is such an awesome mission that you have there.
Thank you.
And I know it's personal for you, since just going through that yourself, like just what that can offer to so many people now.
Yes, yeah, it's very personal to me, and it's been quite the thing to see come to life. I don't know, I never expected to be able to be such a instrumental tool, and so I just, again, I thank God every day for the many different blessings. I understand that sometimes we have to go through what we got to go through in order to get to where we're going, and sometimes we don't know why we're going through something, but as long as we continue looking at things and then taking the positive steps, we get to a point in life where you turn around and you say, oh, okay, I guess I get it now. I had to go through that in order to be here and be prepared for what today brings, right? And so everything is a lesson, and we count our blessings as we go, for sure.
Now, in the last couple of minutes, what advice would you have for other dads or dads with daughters in particular?
My biggest advice that I would have is be present, be open-minded, and be open-hearted, right? And those are 3 very important things, right? In a kid's life, daughters or sons. But for a father who's raising a daughter, we really definitely need to be open-minded and sincere in a way, and understand that that there's a difference between a man and a woman, a girl and a boy, and teaching ourselves what it takes to be able to equip them with what they're going to need to go out and conquer the world, right? And be confident in who they are, and be ready for the things that life is going to bring them in a girl's world, right? In a girl's world. And so that's the advice that I would give.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing everything, your story and all of that. And then the last thing that I ask all my guests is if there's one particular message, something that you would like to say directly to your daughters, and what would you like to say to them?
Well, but to my daughters, never stop looking up, and know that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve as long as you believe. And sometimes things go good and sometimes things go bad, but don't let the bad stop the good from happening, right? And never forget who you are on the inside, and never forget where you came from, and always remember that you're loved.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ralph. It's been such an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I want people to know how they can support Pathways as well. So I'll link to those things in the description.
Thank you.
Thank you to Ralph Martinez for being on the show and sharing his amazing journey. There are some additional articles about Ralph's accomplishments in the description, and if you'd like to support Pathways Homeless Shelter that Ralph co-founded, you can find that link as well. You too can make a positive difference in your kids' lives and in the community. And to show your support of Girl Dad Nation, please leave a 5-star review and follow @GirlDadNation on Instagram and Twitter. I'll be posting more content and notifying followers when new episodes are released. Thank you for listening, and until next time, go be a dad.